Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the SH Figuarts Neptune Man from Kinnikuman, which, like I said before in my other Kinnikuman reviews, I'm not familiar with the franchise. But this figure was sent to me for review so I can review it, and if you're familiar with the franchise, you can have a better informed decision on whether or not you should get the figure. So that's what we're doing here. So we're going to take him off the stand and take a look at him in just a second. First, I want to talk about it briefly. I didn't have the highest opinion of the SH Figuarts Warsman or Ultimate... What is the guy's name? Kinnikuman? I don't remember anymore. The mostly naked guy with the funny looking lips. I didn't have the best opinion of them. They just felt kind of cheap. They did have decent range of motion, but some of the design choices were a little bit odd. This guy still has some of those things, but he is, for the most part, it feels like a better quality figure to me. We do have some issues we'll talk about, but for the most part, it feels pretty good and it looks pretty good. So I think if you're a fan, you're probably gonna like him. Alright, so now let's get him off the stand and take a look. Okay, this guy has some serious size to him. He's not humongous, but he's not any small potato. That's a saying, isn't it? Small potatoes? I don't know. It might be. He's about 16 centimeters tall, which puts him just under 6 inches, I believe. Let's see if I remember. No, just over 6 inches. I can never get the conversions memorized in my head. It's about 6¼ inches, and for the most part, it looks pretty good. I think there's something about well done flesh tones and shading that I'm drawn to them. He's got pretty decent flesh tones, and they did a pretty decent job shading them, so it looks pretty good. He's not super glossy, which is another point I want to make. Most of him is mostly flat or satin, like flat here, kind of satin for the trunks, and then almost glossy and then metallic for the vest and studs, which is really cool. And same thing for that helmet type thing and the wrist pads and everything. They did a good job mixing it up. One of the things I've noticed on this guy, though, there are quite a few issues where you get some kind of paint problem. I don't know if you guys can see that in camera, but it looks like the green has scratched him there, and there's really no good way for the green to even hit that. So I'm not sure how he's got green marks on the back of the arm there. But he's got that issue, and then a couple others I'll point out as we go. But first, let's take a look at the accessories. We have 3 alternate heads, so the first of which is this one with his open mouth, which doesn't look too much like he's trying to take a bite of something. Oftentimes the SH Figuarts look like they're trying to eat rather than yell. This has more of the kind of scrunched up lower lip to make it look like he's yelling, so that's pretty good. We have this alternate head, which is just a stern face, and we have this one, which is like it looks like he's sweating maybe through his helmet, which that's an anime type thing. So it looks like he's concerned perhaps with that face. And here's one of the other problems I want to point out. Just like on the back of the arm, there's a little bit of green smudging, hopefully you can see it, on the chins. And those just come in the package, on their own, so they shouldn't have any of that green smudging, but they do, so that's a problem. Alright, so he also has some alternate hands. These guys don't have the widest variety of accessories, but he's got a few. So we have the fist hands on either side. We have a pointing finger hand for one side. We have these hands, which are just kind of relaxed, loose hands for whatever you want to use. And then we have these hands, the last set, which are just barely different from those other ones. These are also relaxed, loose hands, but they have just enough of a cup to the thumb where they can be used for a gripping pose. So there is that. Then we have 2 more accessories, which I'm not entirely sure what they're for. We have one that is a beat-up Warsman. Maybe he's a rival of Warsman and he rips his head off, maybe? Or it's just a way that they included an extra Warsman head. I don't know. It might be just like the Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader thing. Could be something else. I'm not familiar. Hopefully you guys are. And then lastly, we get a Warsman faceplate, which does not fit on the head. So I'm not sure, again, what that's for. But if you're familiar with the character and that's why you're watching this, then you probably are, and I don't need to tell you anyway. Okay, so generally good looking figure. Let's check out the articulation. It feels to me like the head itself is on a ball peg. The neck is also on a separate ball peg, so you can move it around a little bit. The hair is really stiff, and obviously it goes down a little bit, so it's pretty limiting, but you can still get the head posed fairly well. It's not too bad. I don't think you'll have too many problems. We have this really odd, I want to say odd butterfly joint, because you would think the way it's designed, it has really good range, but it actually doesn't have that much at all. That's all you get, which is not bad, but it's not particularly good. It's just a ball hinge where this connects into the torso, so it's not that great. And then we have a standard ball peg connecting the arm to that butterfly joint, which turns into a ball hinge, so you can move it around. And then you get your bicep swivel out of that peg from the ball hinge going down into the shoulder, which isn't great. You know, I've never been a fan of having only that bicep swivel where the peg is, and this one isn't too bad, but it's not particularly good. We have the double jointed elbow, which doesn't give us the best range, but it's not too bad. And just like the other ones, we have that swivel in the elbow also. But the way it's set up, it doesn't really provide that much use. I mean, it's okay. I don't really get that because it's not something humans have, really. So they should have just given us a proper bicep swivel, I think, and that would have been much better. And then the wrists are your standard ball hinges. For the torso joint, I'm not sure what's going on in there, and since it's not mine, I couldn't really tinker with it too much to try to figure it out. You do get a swivel out of it, and then you get this hinge. So I'm tempted to say it's a ball hinge, but I'm not entirely sure. You do get a pretty solid ab crunch out of it, and it leans back really far also. So that's pretty good. And down here, I'm pretty sure it's just a solid ball peg with the kind of floaty pieces to fill in the gaps. But again, I'm not entirely sure. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself, but you can see the range is there. It's just I'm not sure about how the actual engineering is. For the hips, we have the drop down, the hinged ball pegs, so you're going to get loads of range of motion out of those. So the hinges themselves are good. Then we have the peg that connects to this piece, which has it's the ball socket, and you can swivel the leg around that, or that'll swivel on its own. But then we also have another ball which lets you do that. I'm not sure why. I mean, it does grant you a little bit extra range of motion, but it's I don't know what you would ever need to dislocate his hips for. So that's one of those things where I don't really get it. Lots of range of motion, but it's not really useful. So I don't know. It looks fine when you push them together, though, so I would probably just leave it like that. Double jointed knees, which don't look good because they have that weird cap on them again, because we have that weird swivel built in, just like on the elbow. I don't understand that. Just like I said in the original two figures, it's not necessarily bad, but it doesn't really serve a purpose, and it does detract a little bit. So I don't know. These furry things down here, his leg warmers, the paint's a little muddy on them. They're not the best looking. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be, so I can't really say much about that. Sculpt feels a little bit soft, but it's not, it's not really crisp, but it's not too bad. And then the ankles, we have the hinge. So decent hinge, it's not great. And then we have an ankle rocker. You can rotate it around also, but because of those leg warmers, you don't have the best range of motion. So all in all, it's not a bad figure. It has some questionable choices, but I think if you're a fan of the franchise or a fan of the character, then I don't think those problems are going to really be an issue for you. I wouldn't recommend you get this figure just because it's a cool figure, because then those problems would be an issue. So this one is one that I would reserve only really for the fans of the franchise. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.